Yesterday, when I was with a friend, a close family friend, they had said to me that their loved one was experiencing memory loss, and they were all up in a panic when they had contacted me, and their loved one was having difficulty remembering to take their medicine. And I said, hold on, walk me through it. And because she was already down the rabbit hole of wanting to put her loved one in a nursing home. And that is something that is very, very common. When people think memory loss, they think that their loved one simply has to go in a skilled nursing facility, and that is it. And as I was starting to fill them in on my area of expertise as a speech language pathologist, I was encouraging them to slow down and to pump the brakes, because not every single person who experiences some sort of memory loss has to go directly to a skilled nursing facility. So it was nice that I was able to share this experience and this information that I have with somebody that's really close to me, because this is something that I educate my clients on very, very frequently.
Well, hello, this is Gina.
And this is Don.
With Focused Healthy Family. This is podcast number 63. And today we're talking with Lenora Edwards with Better Speech. Before we get to that, let's hear a word from our sponsor. Our sponsor is Q Sciences. I've been a representative for Q Sciences for over a year. I found this company through a friend and did some research and reading about these products. And I really like what I found when I learned about them. The research and time that they've put into the quality of these products to be better absorbed into the body. Things like the vitamin D spray. Our youngest was on a capsule vitamin D, and yet vitamin D levels remained the same with follow-up checkups. And with the spray, it increased.
Pretty strong.
Almost double.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're talking her levels were maybe 20, and I want to say they went up to 47 or something around that range. And the sleep spray is another great one. It's got melatonin, 5-HTP, and I believe another herbal supplement in there. And because it's a spray, you spray it on your tongue, it gets absorbed more quickly into your body to be more effective to help you in the moment. We're using the B12 spray. We've used the vitamin C spray. They have a Q Max product, which is a multivitamin.
And they also have the CBD, different, a variety of different.
It's full spectrum hemp oils. They even have a THC free version. It comes in different flavors. There is a mushroom.
Oh, yeah.
Armor. It's called Q Armor. It's a powder, and I get the chai flavor, put it in my chai tea for a double chai drink.
So instead of, as they say, flushing your supplements down, the toilet or the drain, you want to get something like this that's fully absorbed. It's like flushing money down the toilet too, if you're not using a supplement that absorbs well and does well for your body. So that's what Q Science is really about. It's a good, well absorbed, high nutrient product.
They have multiple products. They have child specific products. They now also have some facial cream products. I've been using a night cream to minimize the effects of sunlight and stress and aging on my skin. And they have a hemp lotion. That's also a wonderful product that we've tried. So check us out, learn more. You can find the link at our website,
www.focusedhealthyfamily.com. You can also go to focusedhealthyfamily.com/Q Sciences, the letter Q and Sciences.
with an S at the end.
With the S at the end, yes.
And we're back. In today's podcast, we are talking with Lenora Edwards, an ASHA board-certified speech language pathologist and chief knowledge officer with Better Speech. She obtained her certificate of clinician competence in 2010 and works with individuals of all ages, from learning to understanding and expressing themselves to just wanting to improve their speaking skills. and become a more fluent and effective communicator. Better Speech is an online speech therapy company that has been providing professional, affordable, and convenient speech therapy services for over a decade. You can read her full bio on the podcast description. Welcome, Lenora. So glad to have you here today.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It's a pleasure being back with you and spending time with you.
Well, before we get started, I'd like you to kind of take that story a little further. What happened with? I mean, what were you able to do to change their mind about sending their loved one off to the facility?
Especially when it comes to memory loss, there's so many different variations. There's mild, there's moderate, there's severe, there's profound. And memory loss can range from simply forgetting to take someone's medication to quite literally having their words removed from their mind or erased from their mind. And they quite literally cannot recall what they want to say. So when it comes to language, there is a massive, massive variation in it. And we all have the ability to understand language, which is the receptive component, and the ability to express language. And then when it comes to memory, what we're talking about is cognitive linguistic skills. So there's different levels in different parts of the brain, but everything's communicating as a whole. And it's truly important to understand where someone is having difficulties, but also notice where their strengths are and notice how we can support them. For somebody to go, they can't take their medication, they forgot, and now they need to go to a skilled nursing facility is quite a drastic leap. And as a speech language pathologist, we love to educate people and share with them our experiences with our clients that are experiencing whether it is memory loss, such as I can't remember my medication, or leaving the stove on, or not being able to manage their finances. Those are all cognitive components. But we also work with people on their ability to understand language, as in follow commands, answer questions, or understand questions, and then their ability to express language, which is to answer questions. So there's a whole lot. And in the field of speech therapy, I often tell people we work from the neck and up because we see people for swallowing. We see people for their ability to effectively communicate what they want and to clearly communicate what they want. And we also see them for cognitive components. So that's why it's a lot of the time the neck and up.
I like that description. As an occupational therapist myself, I have a great understanding of what speech language pathologists do, but I don't know the average person might think of them as more of someone who works with kids, with speech difficulties. That's probably where we hear about it the most.
Very much so.
So tell us, you kind of went over an overview of what, speech language pathologist does. Maybe just covering some common conditions that you encounter as it relates to.
Absolutely. And I know our fields overlap, especially with occupational therapy. When I first got into the field of cognitive communication and speech therapy and all these lovely labels that we share in this community, I heard speech therapist. And just like many, I thought about the articulation of speech, which is quite literally in our title. And a lot of people did not realize that, or still don't realize that, you will meet a speech language pathologist in a skilled nursing facility. You will meet them in an inpatient and outpatient rehab. You will meet them in an acute care setting. Me professionally, I have worked over the last decade plus of my life. I've worked in the NICU. I've worked in the PICU. I've worked in inpatient and outpatient pediatric rehabs, inpatient, outpatient adult rehabs, and in the school systems and in skilled nursing areas. And it's truly such a wide field. Just like nursing, we have the ability to go in so many different directions, which is great. And I absolutely love that. When I first started, I started out with very young children, working with them on their speech intelligibility and helping them produce their R sounds, or helping them make sure that they're using the correct plural where it is located in the sentence, or using possessives and using that language component. And then I did not realize, even as early as I started into the field, that we also work on swallowing. It just never crossed my mind in the other areas that I was learning as I was growing up. And to really understand and work in the NICU, when you're with a baby, understanding that they're working to suck, swallow, breathe, that they're working to latch onto the pacifier or the nipple, it's a lot of work for them, especially when they're preemies. And to help them build that strength is incredible. And these are things that we just don't think about, but also
Mhm.
to make sure that they can comfortably consume nutrition without having it to go into their lungs. So there's a very, very early component of your possible first interaction with a speech language pathologist. And then as we progress throughout the ages, we see children that are in preschool or in the school system in grammar school, middle school, high school, whatever the case may be. And then we continue to go upwards from that cognitive component. Once we start interacting with 18 and up or traumatic brain injuries, you'll start to see a huge variation because there's so much language, and everything that we do, we're constantly communicating, whether we're communicating with ourselves, as in, okay, I'm going to go upstairs and I'm going to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You're sequencing that entire process, and you have no idea that that's what you're actually doing. We don't just, they're second nature at this point. Versus when you are with a client and you say, okay, tell me how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And they're trying to figure out where they have to find the bread, where they have to find the peanut butter, where they have to find the knife, how they have to open the bag. There's so many other sequences that go on. And it's important that individuals who are experiencing traumatic brain injuries or a memory loss, individuals who are not cognitively completely there, are supported and are guided in those interactions. So there's truly a massively wide field.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is, as is occupational therapy. And you're bringing back memories. I
Mhm.
worked in an adult um, rehabilitation center, and I remember taking them on field trips to the mall and going shopping and doing groups at dinner time where they had to prepare meals. Like you said, those components. I worked, you know, what comes next? What steps do you have to do? And all these components, when you think about young kids learning to do things, it's very similar to that.
Very
And yet
much.
there can be weird discrepancies when someone's experienced a brain injury of areas that are kind of missing.
Very much so. And I love that you pointed out about going on field trips. When you go out into the grocery store, it's a very stimulating experience and there's a lot going on. So for people who have a differently wired nervous system, it's a lot and they need to be able to safely and comfortably regulate and move throughout the environment so that they can live their life.
Mhm. Yeah, like you said, things we take for granted, these things are going on. We don't, I'm going to go make a sandwich. You don't really think about it. You just do it. And
Well, it sounds like there are, what I'd be kind of curious of and kind of going through my mind is what the similarities between the like baby's age, the toddler, that age versus the geriatric age, as they, are there similarities in what you see in the communication or in the speech that you have to work with?
Very much so, actually. So, for example, if there is a 4-year-old and you're working on following 1, 2 step commands, or if you're with a 6-year-old and you're working on following commands, commands are directions and they can be as simple as let's go find your shoes to okay, I want you to go upstairs, change into your pajamas, brush your teeth, wash your face, get into bed, grab a book, and before you get into bed I want you to grab a book, wait for me, and then be there and give me a shout. That's a lot of information, but they understand it because they've now sequenced through it a number of times. When you're now with somebody else who has, let's say, a traumatic brain injury, and you're giving them a lot of direction, they have to sequence through it. Not only do they have to hear it, we're also having to visualize it and process through it. And it's a very different component in the sense of what we took for granted was much easier. But in both cases, whether you're with your 4-year-old or your 6-year-old or an adult that experienced a traumatic brain injury, you're still working on directions, you're still working on commands. So the sequence of, okay, they need to be able to hear me. I need to deliver it in a clear and concise manner. I need to make sure they understood it. Can they say it back to me? Can they complete it? Those mechanics are all the same, but how your 5 or 6-year-old is completing it versus how your traumatic brain injury person is completing it may be two totally different experiences.
Well, that another thought. I hope this is okay. Well, when we're talking about a traumatic brain injury, do you like go around the part of the brain that's been injured, or how do you rework it around? Like I would imagine with a traumatic brain injury, one part of their brain might be injured or been affected, where that part doesn't work anymore. Can you work around it, especially those that have to deal with speech?
Absolutely, because everything that we're able to understand, whether it's reading or hearing it, this is the receptive language component. This is information going in. And then understanding it, being able to express it, whether it's verbal or whether it's through pictures or whether it's through written language, that's the expressive component of language. So, in the event that that area of the brain is damaged, what we're looking for is how can we help? Not, oh, sorry, no go. How can we help? What is the best way that the information is going in? So we know we have something functional to lean on, and we know that they'll feel good in getting that understanding. So let's say somebody doesn't understand the verbal direction I gave them. So they hear it, but it doesn't make sense, but they understand the written. So we're going to lean on the written and go, okay, great. This is how they best understand direction. Now we're going to build on that verbal. So we'll combine that written information and the verbal and work to help them understand information in different ways, because they might not always have the ability to read the direction. They might not always have the ability to hear the direction, but how can we make it functional? And that's the most important thing, is we want people to have the best quality of life they possibly can have. What that looks like for each person is different versus what a family may also really, really want. But the individual may say, this is really working for me. I want to build on this. That's what's truly most important, is what that individual wants and what's functional for them and what they're going to use. Let's say they wanted to use an assisted device and the family was like, no, I want, and we hear this a lot with younger kids, I really want my child to be verbal. And we're offering a communication device for them so that they can communicate. And what we share with families is that the device is a support. We want to empower that child to communicate for themselves. We're not saying, we're not going to work with verbal anymore and goodbye. We're saying, let's use this. Let's make it functional. Let's empower them. Let's get them to understand that they have a voice. They have a choice. And we're going to work on improving their verbal skills. And a lot of the time we'll see with the device, when they have this device that will communicate for them. So they'll press a button and it'll say, I want an apple. And what we'll often see is, as the device is communicating for them, now that individual is starting to communicate for themselves. Also, those verbal skills may emerge. And that's a great thing, because they're understanding, I chose that. I said that, and I can say it this way too.
Yeah, it's empowering for them to be able to, do those things. It's thinking about kids in general and wanting to have control over their lives, wanting to be able to make decisions. And when you have an extra issue on top of things, I love how you explain that this can be a tool for them to help them while they're still working on their speech skills.
Well, and in the geriatric side of it, like even with your father, you've always encouraged, continue to encourage him to do the things he can do, to give him just even the willpower to want to do things. So I think that goes for a lot of not only speech, but actions and being able to do things, do what you can, use what you need to use to help do that. He uses his tools and though he does some, drills through things he shouldn't be drilling through, but he's at least still being active and cognitively working on something.
Yeah,
very much so.
Yeah, the brain is a muscle, right? Just like all the other muscles in our body. And, so I tell people about speech therapy, you're working with all those muscles that involve swallowing and speech. And so we need to exercise all these muscles. And when we don't use the brain, there's atrophy. And I talk about this a lot. Because of the pandemic and people being quarantined, especially a geriatric population, whether it was in their home or in assisted living or independent living community, that isolation and that inability to participate in those activities had a huge impact on cognitive decline. And I saw this with my father with Parkinson's, who would probably have what we'd call a mild cognitive impairment before the pandemic, and now is significantly progressed. And I've spent much time talking with the speech language pathologist that I work with to help me. As an occupational therapist, I did have training in cognition, but to gain more insights from him, since that's been, his working there in that setting, as far as, like one thing he helped me understand was he wasn't in denial of his deficits. He just didn't have an understanding of them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have
Yeah.
the awareness of it.
Yeah, absolutely. The pandemic was extraordinarily hard on everyone. Not a single person did not feel the impact of what occurred in 2020. And I think it especially impacted the geriatric population as well as the younger developing population. So the reason I say the younger ones are what we will eventually refer to, if we haven't already, the pandemic babies, because let's say they were born in 2020 or 2021. In 2018, 2019, you were taking your 4-month-old to the grocery store with you. You were taking them out in the community with you. They were hearing different conversations. They were having family come over. We're getting all of this language and all of this sound and all this information. And then when 2020 and 21 happened, the world went silent. And these little minds and bodies missed a huge chunk of information. And they didn't hear a lot of people coming into the house. They didn't hear, maybe they did hear some phone calls, maybe they didn't, but they didn't hear grocery store noises. They didn't hear any type of store noises, any type of park noise, because everything went silent. And especially when the TV is on, yes, the TV is language, but it's very passive. It's not an interactive thing. If I'm in the grocery store, I'm having a conversation with the cashier, or like, oh, hi, excuse me. Oh, pardon me. Can I move around you? Can I grab some butter? Just little things, such little things that we really didn't think much about. These children missed out on. So now what we're seeing is we're seeing a big increase in the need for speech and language services in the younger population because they missed out on this language development. They also missed out on this social development. Your 3 and 4-year-olds, they weren't on the playground. They weren't making friends. They weren't barely in school. So we're going back and making sure that we now have these skills for this group of people that are here. Also, as you then even look into the geriatrics in skilled nursing facilities, these people were taken out of any sort of routine they had. Then they were presented without their family. Couldn't tell them, could not tell that their family was there if they couldn't see them through the window. And it's a physical interaction when you're with your family. You feel their energy, you feel their hugs, you know their smells. Very, very different. So we took away the routine, we took away family, and then we covered everybody in a mask, tied their hair back, and put a gown on them. And to aging minds and bodies, it's very, very scary. It was scary for me, and I had a functioning, thank goodness, of mind and body. It was scary for me, and it was very scary for them. And we saw the decline of their communication. We saw the decline of their joy, the life that they did have. We saw the decline rapidly because we took away all of these things that were so consistent for them, that they relied on. And it was heartbreaking to watch, and still heartbreaking to watch, because we're still seeing the effects of this, and we will continue to see them throughout our life. And it was just a very, very difficult situation. And yes, of course, we did it for safety, but still, it's incredibly painful for every single person involved.
Yeah, it was almost what was worse, getting the COVID versus all of this, the silence and what it did to us mentally. It was, I think it was almost, which was worse of that,
Yeah.
Double-edged sword, very much so.
Yeah. Because like the shutting down of activities, like in a nursing home or assisted living, where they're used to getting together, having a church service. Yeah. Like you talked about, I work in a facility that brings in people for short-term rehab. And so instead of coming in with their family, they were brought in by a transport person, wheeled into a room, and then just left there to wait till a nurse showed up. And some of these people have cognitive deficits, and how confusing that is.
Confusing, scary, especially when you mentioned your father's awareness. They don't have the awareness of, I shouldn't get up out of the wheelchair with brakes that are not locked. I shouldn't stand up by myself, much less. But they don't have that awareness. And what they're feeling is alone, isolated, panicked, and oh my God, I'm not in a familiar place. I need to go. And that urgency of fight, flight, and freeze is kicking in. These are very human, basic things that are going on. And we're working with other people. No, don't stand up. And these people are standing up, and we're doing as much as we can to take care of them. And it's just heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking all around.
Yeah, it had like you said, such a big impact on top of challenges that were already there to begin with. I'd like to delve into more in the geriatric population. What are some of the challenges in addition to the pandemic that you face working with this population?
Especially when it comes to adults, I can't say like I love a population more than another. I just love helping people. So it doesn't, whether they're 2 years old or 2 months old or 2 weeks old, or if they are 104, which my oldest was 104, I just love working with people. And I think it's such a fantastic field to be a part of. When it comes to the aging population, me personally, I would like to keep people as safe as possible in the home for as long as possible. So that is what I absolutely love to do. And I think the fact that we now have technology that is able to support people in all the ways that we possibly can support them, short of having a moving robot cook you a meal, we really are having the ability to keep people in their homes for longer. And when it comes to working with a speech language pathologist, or if you have an aging parent or an aging loved one, whatever the case may be, notice where they are, notice what their capabilities are and what they're doing on a daily basis. So on a daily basis, are they still driving? Are they managing their medication if they're taking any? Are they managing their finances? Are they using a credit card ever? Are they using cash ever? Are they using a checkbook? What is the setup in their home? Are there loose rugs? Is there expired food? So just taking notice of this, and especially when the nice thing is that if you do have a good relationship with an older adult or with a parent, these are things that you're used to. So when things start to shift, you're like, what's up with that? Why all of a sudden? You're automatically on guard thinking, ooh, something is not here, something is wrong. And the nice thing is that, especially with Better Speech, if you ever had a question and you wanted to speak with a speech language pathologist, you can get in touch with one. And that I am so incredibly proud of, because you can schedule a consultation and you can talk with us as early as the next business day. So if you're laying in bed at 2 a.m. going, did my mom actually put that in the oven when she should have put it in the fridge? If you're laying there and thinking that, that's okay. Talk to a professional, because those are red flags for sure. We do not want milk ending up in the oven and when it should be in the refrigerator, or we don't want somebody taking a wrong amount of medication. So what are the things that we can do to help? And working with a speech language pathologist, our intention is to A, see how they're communicating, and B, see what they're doing on a daily basis. If they don't normally read the newspaper and I say, hey, what's new in the news? And they, I haven't turned the news on for 14 years. I'm going to go, oh, okay. So that makes a lot of sense. Tell me about the Golden Girls. And they could tell me this long history about this TV show. Great. It's functional. If they're not used to reading, I'm not going to ask them to read. That's the goal, is to find out where that person is, what are their skills, and what are we noticing? Is that individual even aware that they might be forgetting their medicine, or that they might be forgetting where they put their keys? Or is that a normal thing? There are people who normally forget certain things, and they've just come to deal with that for 60 plus years of their life. And like, oh, that's just her. Great, no problem. Is it impacting their life? Do we need to address it? How can we help? And working with a speech language pathologist, that's our area of expertise, is being the detective of where are you? What are you wanting? And how can we work to get you where you want to go? And I love that, because everything is truly individualized. We're not just putting you on here, take 2 tablets 2 times a day with food. Good luck. We're making it functional, and we're making it functional for you and for your family.
Well, it makes me feel better about carrying my keys in my hand and looking for them at the same time,
Right?
or someone who leaves their glasses on their head and looks for their glasses, so I feel a little better now because that's just.
And those are very automatic things because you're probably used to feeling something on your head. It's just a very neutral thing. Duh, they're there. Now, if you dropped your key or you had your keys in your hand and you put them on the counter and then you started to look outside in the garden for your keys and you weren't ever out in the garden for about 5 weeks, I would go, okay, well, maybe we need to work on something. But that kind of extreme is definitely an extreme. If you put them on the counter and you're looking at them going, where are my keys? Where are my keys? I often encourage people, especially when you're sorting for something, and this is effective in the grocery store, think about what it actually looks like. So if you're in the salad dressing aisle and you're looking for a very specific salad dressing, rather than thinking of the name, think of the bottle. What does the bottle look like? And you will sort for it faster. Or if you're thinking, okay, syrup, I'm looking for a specific syrup, think of the shape of the bottle that you're looking for. And that way you're not just picturing, I'm in the syrup aisle. Of course, I'm going to find syrup over here. Which one are you wanting? I know which one I'm wanting because I'm sorting for that picture of the bottle. So quite literally, my brain will go and it'll pick it up much easier.
That's a good suggestion.
It is. There are so many components of, cognitive skills and ways of compensating and ways, pictures are great. I love memory books for people. I work a lot with people with dementia and writing things down in there with them. I used to work in an assisted living in the memory care unit and would put together, the name of their family members and other things that they liked. And then we'd go over it with them. Having that routine of repeated information. My favorite thing to do when I don't work in the memory unit all the time, but I go into the room and there's pictures on the wall and I'll ask them about the people and, get them interacting, and maybe they'll tell me a story or maybe they'll remember who someone is or they don't. Like you said, that functional, engaging in their environment and what is useful and typical for them.
Well, you did that with your dad. You put together a box of pictures for him that he could destroy, he could write on, he could do, because your mother was so worried. He was going through the albums, the actual albums, and taking pictures out, and she got very upset over the fact that and so you came up with the idea, and I thought it was very smart, of duplicating those pictures and putting them into a box where he could, and I think you even gave him an album that he could take in and out of, and he does that. He'll sit and go through the pictures. I thought that was a rather good technique.
It's so helpful
to calm your mother's nerves, plus to help your dad.
Yeah. It's so helpful. If I ever ran my own nursing home, I would hands down have pictures everywhere, but I would only play the music that they were used to, and I would only play movies that they were used to. So if it was like a unit that grew up during the 1930s and 1940s, that's the only stuff that I would replay, because what happens is you quite literally align to that area of your life, and you actually do. There is studies like this. I don't know if there's any university studies, but I have seen studies where their aging process does change, and it slows because you're keeping them in this very familiar environment. And I would never play the news, and I would never play any scary movies. I would only play comedies, because there is a chemical hormonal balance, and there should be movement and dancing and good things. So I have a whole idea. If I ever ran a nursing home.
I like the 40s music. That's my gig. Right. But I grew up because my parents played it constantly, like Glenn Miller and all that. So
completely.
So when I get to be that age, that's what you might want to play.
Yeah, no, I love that too. When I see them putting on the old movies and things, Golden Girls is a common.
The best.
And that's not that old, really, thinking about the population. But Yeah, shows that they're familiar with, music that they're familiar with. We've done that a number of times when we get people doing exercise, pulling up music that they enjoy.
Completely.
You might want to talk about music and how it's a different area of the brain than speech is even.
Absolutely. Music is phenomenal. And the way that our brain will sort and retain information. So, a lot of the time, we may have a client who recently had a stroke, and they might not have what we would say. They may have aphasia, or they don't have their words, or they're having difficulty expressing themselves. When it comes to using music, it's such an amazing thing that happens in the brain, because it was there a lot of the time. Well, we grow up hearing nursery rhymes, or if you're ever around small children, you're probably singing a nursery rhyme or two. And it goes in differently. Your brain quite literally retains the information differently. So if we're having difficulty with or our client is having difficulty, and we say, "What's your name?" So now, what's your name? It's a WH question. It's not a yes, no. So automatically it's harder for them. But then they also have to go through all of the names they've ever heard of and go through this catalog and try and figure out which one belongs to them. It's very difficult. But if we start singing happy birthday to you, they're going to pick it up differently. And you'll quite literally see their eyes widen, their face brighten, and they go, and what's happening in the brain is the brain is going, "I know this." And they will start to fill in the words, and they'll start to sing with you. Or if you start to go, and you hum with them, they get excited because they understand and they know it. It's such an amazing thing that happens. The brain is absolutely phenomenal, and I will cease to be in awe of it for my entire life. But there's so many amazing things that truly happen when we connect with people, and when we connect with people in the way that's meaningful for them. And when that you can start to see them realize, "I know something." They realize quite literally they're not stupid. They do know something, and they're not alone, and that somebody is there with them, and they speak their language to some extent. And it's so important, because we naturally, automatically want to feel connected to others, and we want to know that we're not alone. And when you're not having the ability to functionally express yourself, or that you feel like some of our clients felt when they were left alone in the nursing home, they felt very alone. When you have that connection with somebody, "I'm not alone. Thank God." It's such an amazing thing that happens.
I'm curious as to, on the caregiver side, like the spouse or the family member who's taking care of this person, what kind of things do you do? Are there speech things you do with them to help them, like maybe even teaching them the words to say, or something like that? What do you do for that side of it?
That's a great question, especially when it comes to caregivers. And caregivers are absolutely extraordinary. It is something that people truly need to be supported through. And it's not just, "Oh, my dad fell and he broke his hip for 2 weeks." Dear heavens, I hope not. That's not the case. When you're a caregiver, this is now another part of you. This isn't just something you do on the side. This is quite literally completely a part of your life. And as somebody who is providing care to their loved one, it is truly important for the caregiver to also feel seen and heard and supported and guided. And it's so important to continue to offer information to caregivers, and to do the best that we can to offer them breaks. Quite literally, they need to know that it's okay to go take a shower. They need to know that it's okay that they go out for the afternoon, and that their loved one will be safe and they'll be okay, and that they're not alone. So, just as much as we don't want our client or our patient to be alone, we don't want that caregiver to feel alone either. And they need to feel supported. And the first thing I tell them is, in addition to "it's okay," is to ask for help. Be open to asking for help, and be okay with asking for help, because when you've now come to a completely new level, and we see a lot of the time, "Oh, I can do it. I'll be fine." And it's not that they can't do it, and it's not that they'll be fine. We know that they can do it and that they will be fine, but we want to support them. We want them to have the help so that they can feel, yeah, I will be okay and I will be fine. I'm not just saying it to say it. And that is truly what I encourage all families and caregivers to do, is to reach out to other people, connect with other people who are caregivers, but also connect with other people who are not caregivers who can support you, whether it's to make a meal, whether it's to give you a break, whether it's to listen, whatever the case is. It is not just our client that's experiencing a memory loss and then this caregiver is here. Goodbye. You don't exist and we're not going to look at you. No, it should be a completely connected community component of offering help when you need to and reaching out to others, because it's so important that everybody, the more the caregiver is also supported, the more that client or patient will also be supported. And that's a great thing. We want people to do well. We don't want people drowning and feeling like they're overwhelmed and that they're about to burst into tears. We want them supported. And as a speech language pathologist, my role is to not only share that information with them, but also to educate them on the things that their loved one can do and what else they may expect, just to keep them aware, keep them alert for changes in their environment. Changes may come within 2 weeks. Changes may not come for 2 years. They may maintain beautifully. We don't know. It's just unfolding. But our role is to educate and to share and to support as much as possible.
Well, I would imagine you kind of become the interpreter for them in a way, and then teach them how to interpret based on what's going on for their loved one.
Definitely. Very much so.
Yeah, you hit on a very big topic there, is the importance of the caregiver and empowering them and giving them the information and the support that they need to care for their loved one. I know as an OT, I spend time talking with family members all the time, explaining them, what's going on, especially when you look at neurological deficits or dementia and understanding the process of it. And it looks different. There's such a vast array of differences in what it can look like. And, the things that you can do to help, like you said, maintain where they're at, familiar surroundings, like you said, being able to stay at home. That's the biggest challenge. You take someone out of their home, you stick them in the hospital for 2 weeks, then you move them to a nursing home. This is, these are disorienting things. And then we expect them to know where they are and what day of the week it is. And
who's president,
Truly, and it's there's just so many things that go into it. And I'm trying to do your best to remind them that they're safe, that they're cared for, and that everybody's doing their best to help them, but they also need to help themselves and to participate in therapy. And that as a therapist, and I'm sure you may have experienced this once or twice, I'm not trying to bug you. I'm not trying to nag you, and I'm not trying to get on your very last nerve. My role is to help. And we repeat this often. Well, these are some of the difficulties that you're having. And I think something that's also truly important to touch on is when you're having a cognitive decline, you're also having a change in your personality. And it's important to remember that people who are having a cognitive decline are not intentionally nasty, even though they might come across like they're being intentional. And I say this to people a lot, even when, my colleagues may be getting frustrated. We say this to each other because people can make our clients and our patients can make comments and they catch us off guard and they're like, get away from me. You're like, hey, and you're like, that's right. They're not doing it to upset me. They're not trying to come after me. They're having a personality change. And it's important to understand that this 80-something-year-old person probably would have much preferred to never have this to begin with. They probably aren't trying to upset me. They're probably doing their best. And they're probably really a nice person, but it's just coming out in a different way right now. And I tell them a lot, do your best not to take it personally, because there will be times that your loved one can say very mean things to you, very, very vicious things to you. And what's actually happening is that it's a personality shift. And this loved one that you had is not the same person that you had, even though some of it is the same at 50. This now loved one at 80 something is a very different person. And to do your best to hold on to the good memories and to let go of the painful ones.
Well, and anxiety can build between how they're feeling inside and what they want to express from inside and how they can express it. And the two don't always match. So there's where the anger, the anxiety can build up because they really want to get out this, but they can't get it out. And so that, I can see why they could be angry and
so many things.
Have anxiety.
Yeah, well, just sort of touching on issues with my father. So my father was an engineer, and then he became a financial planner, and he's very analytical and wants to figure things out and understand things. So now he's got dementia, and he's constantly trying to figure things out. We took him to get a driver's evaluation a number of years ago because we knew he wasn't safe to drive anymore, but he thought he was. And his response afterwards was, well, they didn't let me study for the test ahead of time. They're trying to trip me up and asking me questions about what day it is. And what does that have anything to do with anything? And
well, he still wants that Corvette too,
But, and I see this, I can pretty much pick out people who are working in the engineering field or related things, and just how I approach them is often different, so understanding their background and that the way they process things and that information is, that's kind of ingrained in them, their way of thinking about things. And so, he's also very, sort of concrete, and like his therapists were building him up and telling him, oh, you're doing great. And I'm like, yeah, he thinks he's doing great. He doesn't realize of his deficits. And so, there's a fine line there of empowering someone, but also someone who's very practical and wants to know the facts and understand how things work. You really do need to be direct with them, even if they are dealing with dementia. And so there's so much importance in understanding a person's personality and their background. And
so well said. Completely.
Because it adds extra challenges.
And when he has his times when he's very aware. Just recently we were down there, and I had a chance to sit down. We were on the front porch, and he was expressing how frustrating it is of the things that he knows he wants to do and can't do, and then he even brought up the fact that he realizes that he has delusional thoughts and visions and things like that. He recognized it. He was aware of it, and
those moments of clarity.
Yeah.
He has moments of like, wow, and yet then there's times where he can't distinguish, or he's calling 911 because he's hallucinating a person in the room, or he's
going across the street in his socks and probably underwear, going to neighbors' houses because he's afraid of something.
Something happening, right? Yeah, but then there's those other moments, and different types of cognitive disorders can manifest in different ways,
very much so.
You lost. The ums come out when she's lost a little bit
about things and trying to put it in the form of a question.
I guess I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What I was saying about is like somebody that's just starting to realize that somebody's going through this. That like when with my mom, we found little Post-it notes all around, and that was the beginning of the awareness that there was something going on. What kind of advice or suggestions would you have for them where to begin, what to do?
And that's where I think just notice your loved one and notice their behaviors, and start noticing things that are not in line with their behaviors. If they are asking the same question, even though you talked about it 5-10 minutes ago, or if they're asking you and for sure that you just had this conversation, or you had a really detailed conversation about somebody's birthday party, and then 2 days later they go, did you ever get to that place? And they completely forgot about the birthday party. Notice the consistencies, because again, one or twice, that's not too uncommon. So definitely cut your loved ones some slack, but notice, okay, well, we had this. And also to be gentle in your encouragement, don't you remember we talked about this already? Oh,
Yeah.
well, the other day when we spoke on Tuesday, we talked a lot about the birthday party and the blue balloon and talk about those characteristics. As you're talking about the conversation and you're not shaming someone for remembering or not remembering, you'll start to notice if they do recall the conversation or if they don't recall the conversation. Once you start to involve shaming or any type of discrimination towards somebody that may be experiencing a cognitive decline, they will go and move mountains to ensure that A, you don't do that again, and B, that they don't tell you anything ever again. And it's truly, you may think like, oh, well, they'll forget to tell me. No, 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 no. When you start really coming at them with a lot of emotion, they remember that. They will remember how you made them feel for sure.
Kind of
So just,
locks you out of it then.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
There was the family that I had spoken to a couple months back, thinking back to a story, they did not let them in the house for a period of time, and it wasn't too uncommon because they really were not very close in proximity. But by the time that they finally got into the house, they didn't realize how bad it had gotten. There was food in things piled up in one of the bathtubs. There were things hidden. There were briefs hidden. And it was just a all around clear situation that this person was no longer safe at home. But they're not talking about that on the phone. They're talking about some other things, not, hey, tell me about your day. What did you do? Where did you go? The conversations were very brief. So when possible, FaceTime is a great thing. Zooming is a great thing because you can see your loved one's environment and you'll be able to notice if there is something that is off. But then you can also, even once you get into the environment, take a look around. Is there a lot of expired food? Are there labels or are there things that haven't been opened? Are there things that are going bad? Are there things that are stored in weird places? And start to look for things that may indicate that simply something is amiss. And when we talk about safety, are they safe at home? As in, are they able to lock the doors? Are they able to make sure that they don't turn the oven on for a period of time? Or if the oven's on, are they remembering to turn it off? Are they answering the door to unknown people, or are they able to protect themselves? That's safety in the home, not necessarily as in, they didn't close the cereal box. That's much, much less compared to, is the oven on? Is the door wide open? Did they shut the door at night? Those types of differences.
And then once you see that one is not coming at them and necessarily pointing it out to them, but maybe find ways to gently bring them to a professional to find, to get them I can't analyzed, I guess, is
assessment.
Assessment. There you go. That's the word.
Ask for an assessment.
Analyzing sounds a little too technical or something, but
we're going to put you under the microscope.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend who recently said she found an online Alzheimer's assessment tool. She said it was from the Alzheimer's Association, that was a quiz she takes to look at her memory deficits. And I'm curious your thoughts on these. My first thought was, you kind of really need to go to a professional with that. You got to be careful of just taking some quiz. So I'm just curious your comments on that.
Whenever possible, I call me old fashioned, whatever you like. I like to talk to humans.
Yeah.
I love to talk to people because, especially if I was not a speech pathologist and I had concerns about my loved one, not only would I reach out to a speech language pathologist, I'd reach out to another speech language pathologist, and I'd reach out to another. And I would also reach out to somebody that I know that may have had a loved one experience Alzheimer's. And then I would reach out to an Alzheimer's group, or I would be very careful and wary about diving down the rabbit hole of Google or WebMD anytime, especially at 2 a.m. But I would ask questions and I would build my information from my conversations, because there's experiences, there's things that people know, and that's a great thing. For me as a speech language pathologist, you will never hear me say, I am God's gift to speech therapy. No. I can barely get the sentence out. But what I do encourage people is to say, ask me. I'm more than happy to talk with you. Ask my colleague. They're more than happy to talk to you. Ask this other person. Go to the occupational therapist and ask them, because everybody has experiences and we can all teach from our experiences. And that will help, because you'll get little gold nuggets from different people and you'll be able, so I remember that story. That was very helpful. When one person or one assessment is the holy grail of assessments, that makes me a little weary. It's great to use them as a tool. Use them for what they are. See them as a tool.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I don't build a whole house with a hammer.
Yeah, I was going to say, just using them to get the awareness, to start the awareness factor of then when you go to your parents to be able to start seeing things to be able to move forward. So,
and it often takes more than just a doctor. I know a lot of people go to doctors all the time for the assessments, and they don't necessarily have the training in assessing someone's cognition. And
very much so. And even in going to a physician, super helpful, especially neurologists. They have great tools. They're also using tools to make their diagnosis, to make their assessment. They're using their experiences. Phenomenal. We want that. We want educated information, but also going to groups, support groups, especially Parkinson's support groups, and learning from other people. What is their story? What's their story? I want to learn, because in that we're connecting, which is a great thing. We understand we're not alone, which is a great thing. And we can also learn from other experiences. Wow, I didn't know that existed. My doctor didn't tell me. Now, your doctor didn't tell you, not because your doctor didn't care. Your doctor simply may not have remembered, may not have had the information, may have run out of time. So many things. And it doesn't make the doctor bad. It doesn't make the speech pathologist bad. It just simply means you found out new information. Great. How can you pass it on?
Well, we could talk on this subject. I know, especially Gina,
about my questions and not get lost in terminology. But I'd love for you to share any other information about better speech and any other
ways that they can find out more about you.
And about additional information.
And we will have it up on the description with the podcast, but we don't mind mentioning it here too.
We could seriously talk for another 3 hours. I have no doubt. You're welcome to reach out to us at betterspeech.com. We are actually not only throughout the entire US with board certified speech therapists that are online for you on Zoom. We are also international. And I absolutely love that, because we are in the comfort of your own home. You don't have to leave. You don't have to go to inpatient or outpatient rehab of any sort, or I should say outpatient, unless inpatient is recommended. But the fact that we're in your home and you can talk with us, you can work with us, we can provide therapy, we can provide a ton of information, all from the comfort of your home. So simply reach out to us at betterspeech.com, and you can talk with us as early as the next business day.
Well, Lenora, it's been a real joy to talk with you, and great information. I think it'll be effective for a lot.
Especially as we dive more into the world of the sandwich generation and caring for aging parents or other loved ones, and just these challenges that we're facing, because the baby boomers are a large population that is reaching this age and seeing a lot of dementia. And because people are living longer, we're seeing a lot more instances of dementia.
Very much so, unfortunately.
So thank you for sharing everything that you did, for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. It was great talking with you guys.
So that's our podcast for today. We hope you enjoyed it. We'd love to hear from you. Make sure to leave us a comment. If you like what you heard today, you can learn more about Lenora and Better Speech. Also, you can find out about our parenting coaching program, or you could join us for our next workshop. You can get our Tuesday tips for parents, and you can read our blog and listen to our podcast simply by going to www.focusedhealthyfamily.com. That's focused with an ED, healthyfamily.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Focused Healthy Family, Instagram at gina.focusedhealthyfamily. And remember, how you speak to your children today shapes their future and yours.